At 0600 at Joint Base Andrews, 3 Loadmasters are chaining a 20,000-pound limousine to the cargo floor of a C-17 Globemaster. Each chain torqued to a specific tension. Too loose and the vehicle shifts at altitude. Too tight and the attachment point cracks over the Pacific. This is the easy part, because in just a few days, this limousine and 68 tons of the most classified vehicles in America need to be on the ground in Beijing, a country with no U.S. airbase, no friendly warehouse, and a security service that's already hacked into American phone networks. The Beast, the president's armored limousine and arguably the most heavily modified vehicle on Earth, weighs roughly 20,000 pounds. That's 6 Toyota Camrys stacked on top of each other, packed into a single vehicle with 8 inches of classified armor, 5-inch bulletproof glass, and doors heavy enough to need hydraulic assistance just to swing open. Park that off-center inside a C-17 cargo bay, and the aircraft's center of gravity shifts enough to make a routine flight a disaster. 3 Loadmasters spend 45 minutes positioning this one vehicle. Laser guidance systems align it to fractions of an inch. Chains rated for the worst turbulence the sky can throw at a plane lock the wheels to the cargo floor. Get the math wrong at any point in this process, and you've created the world's most expensive problem somewhere over the Pacific. But the Beast doesn't travel alone. The Secret Service ships at least 2 identical limousines on every overseas trip. Same armor, same weight, same everything. They actually weigh both cars to make sure they're within 5 pounds of each other. Behind the first C-17, more are loading. Armored Suburbans for the Secret Service Tactical Team, a mobile command post called the Roadrunner that can jam hostile signals and keep encrypted satellite connections running at the same time. A hazmat rig that can sniff chemical agents from hundreds of feet away. Enough medical equipment to turn a parking lot into a trauma center, including emergency transfusion kits matched to the president's specific blood type. The pilots carrying all of this have security clearances usually reserved for people who transport nuclear weapons. The Pentagon figured if you can be trusted with atomic bombs, you can probably handle the president's ride. Now, on the trip to Qatar or Germany, this motorcade lands at an American-controlled air base. Vehicles roll into a climate-controlled warehouse that becomes sovereign U.S. territory through diplomatic agreement. Armed Marines patrol a 2-mile perimeter while local security forces develop a sudden fascination with looking the other direction. But the C-17s headed for Beijing don't get a friendly warehouse or cooperative guards. There is no American airbase in China. These planes will land at a Chinese-controlled airport, taxi to a section of tarmac negotiated months in advance, and unload while Chinese security watches from the perimeter. U.S. Air Force Loadmasters handle every vehicle. Chinese personnel don't get within 50 feet, but the vehicles will sit on Chinese soil for days before Trump arrives. And in a country that's already hacked into American phone networks, every hour on that ground is an hour someone could be tucking something into an undercarriage that wasn't there at Andrews. The Secret Service agents already in Beijing know this. They've been on the ground for weeks. What they don't know yet is what the Chinese will try to stop at the door. Weeks before Air Force One's wheels touch Chinese soil, a Secret Service advance team lands in Beijing on commercial flights. Small groups, staggered arrivals, fake travel plans that say they're embassy staff. The moment they step off the plane, they're operating inside a country that's already hacked into American phone networks and government systems and knows exactly what it's looking for. The team assumes every hotel room is compromised. Not suspected, compromised. Phone calls intercepted. Meetings with Chinese counterparts recorded. That's not paranoia. That's just Tuesday in China. And it changes everything about how the advance team works. Here's the problem. The president needs to receive classified briefings in Beijing, in a hotel room, inside a country where the walls are literally listening. How do you have the most sensitive conversations on Earth in a building that's wired to record every word? You bring your own walls. Walk into the presidential suite before the advance team gets to it, and it looks like any 5-star hotel room in Beijing. King-size bed, mahogany desk, silk curtains, a minibar nobody's going to touch. Walk in 3 hours later, and the hallway outside looks like a furniture graveyard. The desk is out there, nightstands too, lamps, chairs, all of it piled against the corridor wall, because every piece is assumed to contain listening devices smaller than a shirt button buried in the wood. Inside the room, agents are bolting together furniture that flew across the Pacific from Washington. Desks, chairs, communications consoles, the entire setup, building what they call an SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. Fancy way of saying a room inside a room where the walls can't hear you. But the room sweeps are just one piece. The bigger fight plays out months before any agent touches Chinese soil, and it doesn't involve the Secret Service at all. A separate agency most people have never heard of, the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service, sits across a table from Chinese authorities and fights over a single document, line by line, for weeks. It's called a security agreement, and every line in it is a brawl. An American agent asks for a counter-sniper position on a specific rooftop along the motorcade route. Chinese side says no. That rooftop is too close to a government facility. Push back. Beijing offers a different rooftop, 2 blocks farther away with a worse sight line. That negotiation happens for every rooftop, every route, every door the president's detail wants to walk through. On the Chinese side of that table sits the Central Guard Bureau, the people you'll see controlling building perimeters, manning checkpoints, running the airspace. Think of them as China's Secret Service, except they also run domestic intelligence. The actual Secret Service gets one thing: the small circle of space directly around Trump. Outside that circle, Chinese officers run the show. Both sides will be standing shoulder to shoulder around the president, each watching the crowd and each watching the other. During Trump's 2017 visit, the advance team hit a wall they couldn't negotiate through. Even with over 100 agents and weeks of preparation, they looked at the map and said they couldn't keep the president safe outside one city. They restricted Trump to Beijing only, canceled all secondary travel. Think about that for a second. The most well-funded protective detail on the planet looked at the map of China and said, "We can do one city. That's it." For May 2026, that assessment hasn't changed. The Secret Service doesn't tell Chinese security which roads the motorcade will take until 30 minutes before it moves. They've booked entire hotel floors. During Trump's 2017 visit, reports indicate the Secret Service secured over 300 rooms across multiple Beijing hotels. Not because anyone needs 300 rooms, but because empty rooms flanking the presidential suite create buffer zones that can't be compromised from next door. You can't bug a room that you can't get into. And after all of that preparation, the swept rooms, the negotiated rooftops, the furniture flown in from Washington, the advance team still has to hand the president off to a motorcade that's about to drive through streets where someone else's security forces control every intersection. But first, Trump has to cross the Pacific. 7 hours out of Alaska, somewhere over the Black Pacific with nothing below but open water. Every screen on Air Force One is running live feeds. The Iran War, Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israeli campaign that launched February 28th, is still active. This trip was already delayed once because of it, pushed from late March to mid-May. And if something escalates in the Strait of Hormuz while this plane is over open ocean, the president needs to give orders from 40,000 feet as if he were sitting in the White House basement. The flight started with a refueling stop at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Alaska, roughly 5 hours from Andrews. The plane has the range to reach Asia non-stop, but the stop gives them a cushion on fuel, a crew swap, and reserves well above what they'd need in an emergency. Not exactly cinematic, but this is logistics, not a movie. 7 hours into the crossing, an encrypted satellite link punches through hostile jamming to connect the president to the Pentagon, to nuclear submarines, and to the intelligence agencies tracking the Iran campaign in real time. Operation Epic Fury is still generating targets. And if the Strait of Hormuz escalates while this plane is over open water, orders need to move from 40,000 feet to carrier strike groups in seconds. Every communication system on this aircraft was hardened to survive an electromagnetic pulse. That's not a selling point, that's the reason this plane exists. Somewhere in the middle section, behind a door that looks like every other door on the aircraft, a military physician checks the surgical suite. Operating table folded against the bulkhead, a pharmacy cabinet stocked and secured for turbulence, transfusion supplies matched to the president's exact needs. If a medical emergency hits over the Pacific, the nearest runway might be in Japan or Russia, somewhere the Secret Service has never seen and can't lock down on short notice. The medical team trains for exactly this scenario, keeping the president alive for hours in the air when there's nowhere safe to land. None of that matters if the Secret Service can't secure what's waiting on the ground. And what's waiting on the ground is an airport that belongs to someone else. Air Force One is 30 minutes out. The advance team has been at Beijing Capital International Airport since the day before. They don't control a single square foot of it. Chinese security, the Central Guard Bureau, and the People's Armed Police runs the terminal, the taxiways, the perimeter, the airspace. The Secret Service has negotiated one concession: a remote hard stand far from the passenger terminals where Air Force One will park after landing. Inside a tight perimeter around that hard stand, the Secret Service has authority. Step past the perimeter markers and you're standing on Chinese ground. The motorcade sits assembled on the tarmac, unloaded days earlier from the C-17s. Mirrors on extendable poles sweep the undercarriages looking for anything magnetic or adhesive. Explosive detection dogs circle each chassis in patterns designed to cover every angle. Electronic sweepers scan for transmitters, tracking devices, anything broadcasting a signal that shouldn't be there. The vehicles haven't moved since the C-17s unloaded them, and this entire inspection exists to answer one question: has anything been added? Air Force One's wheels touch the runway. The choreography begins. The aircraft taxis to the hard stand. Chinese security forms the outer ring. Secret Service agents take positions at the base of the air stairs. Somewhere behind them, a formation of black SUVs idles with engines running and air conditioning blasting. Because Beijing in May is already pushing 85 degrees, and nobody wants the president stepping into a car that feels like a pizza oven. And this is where the sovereignty compromise becomes visible. The motorcade's armed core rolls forward, both beasts flanked by the halfback SUV, the counter-assault team stacked behind them, the Roadrunner and ambulance trailing in formation. All American vehicles, American drivers, American communications. But as they pull onto the airport road, Chinese motorcycle escorts slide into position on both flanks. Chinese lead cars merge ahead. Chinese route-clearing vehicles take the point. The American armored column is now wrapped in a Chinese police escort, and it will stay wrapped until the president is back on this tarmac and headed home. In any other context, a foreign military escort surrounding the president's motorcade would be a crisis. In Beijing, it's the plan. Just picture it: an American armored convoy rolling through the streets of Beijing at speed, surrounded by Chinese officers on motorcycles who answer to their own chain of command. Two countries running the same convoy, neither one fully trusting the other. Trump descends down the air stairs, 50 feet of open tarmac, the most exposed moment of the entire trip, and enters the beast. The door closes. 8 inches of armor seal between the president and Beijing. The motorcade rolls down Chang'an Avenue, past Tiananmen Square, through the streets wide enough to land a small plane on. Chinese police line both sides of the road in formation so precise they look rehearsed, because they were, multiple times the week before. Secret Service counter-sniper teams hold positions on rooftops placed there with Chinese permission after weeks of negotiation. Chinese work crews welded shut every manhole cover along the route under American observation. Windows with sight lines to the road have been cataloged, cleared, and in some cases physically sealed. The detail chief chose the live route based on real-time intelligence fed to the motorcade while it was already rolling. The other two blocked simultaneously, so nobody watching can tell which one matters. The motorcade pulls up to the Great Hall of the People. And if 2026 follows the 2017 playbook, what's waiting inside will be unlike anything you've seen on a presidential visit. The Great Hall of the People stretches across the entire western edge of Tiananmen Square. When Trump walks through those doors, Chinese protocol officers will escort him through corridors wide enough to drive a car through, past chandeliers the size of studio apartments, into receiving rooms where a single table costs more than most American houses. But the Great Hall is the formal stage, the real showpiece, if 2026 follows the 2017 playbook, is the Forbidden City. In 2017, Xi shut down 178 acres of Forbidden City for Trump. The entire complex, every courtyard, every tourist entrance to a palace that normally draws 80,000 people a day. Imagine walking through it empty. No crowds, no tour groups, not a single selfie stick clogging your sightline. Just your footsteps on 600-year-old stone, echoing off vermilion walls in a palace that normally draws 80,000 people a day. Peking opera floats across a courtyard at sunset, performed for an audience of 2 presidents and their wives. Most world leaders get a state dinner. Trump got a private palace. China's foreign ministry made up a whole new term for what they were doing, State Visit Plus. No other foreign leader has received that designation, before or since. Multiple analysts expect a similar reception this May. The 2-day format matches 2017 exactly. Melania is attending just as she did then. And China has every reason to go bigger. Since 2017, Washington and Beijing have been through a trade war and an American military campaign in Iran that's currently choking off 12 million barrels a day of Chinese oil. Xi needs results from this summit, and the Chinese figured something out during that 2017 visit. Spectacle works on Trump. His own advisor said so afterward. Beijing learned that lesson. They'll deploy it again, almost certainly bigger. The state dinner inside the Great Hall seats over 2,000. Imagine your seat. White tablecloth, gold-rimmed porcelain, crystal that catches the chandelier light from 3 stories above. 2,000 plates arrive simultaneously through doors you didn't notice existed, carried by waiters moving with choreographed precision. The food the Secret Service has no authority to inspect reaches the president's fork at the same temperature it left the kitchen. Toast scripted weeks in advance. Camera angles negotiated like treaty provisions. When China hosts a state dinner, nothing is accidental. But here's what happened the last time Trump entered this building. November 9th, 2017. As his delegation walked toward the Great Hall entrance, Chinese security blocked the U.S. military aide carrying the nuclear football, the briefcase that follows the president everywhere because it's his direct link to America's nuclear arsenal. The White House, Air Force One, Beijing. The Chinese guards wouldn't let the aide through. When Chief of Staff John Kelly found out, he rushed over and ordered his people to keep walking. We're moving in. Kelly, a retired 4-star Marine general who'd served in combat zones, wasn't asking permission. A Chinese security official grabbed Kelly. Kelly shoved the man's hand away. A Secret Service agent reportedly tackled the Chinese officer to the ground. The scuffle ended in seconds. The aide got through. Beijing apologized and asked both sides to keep the whole thing quiet. So naturally, 5 sources leaked it to Axios within the year. For several minutes, though, the president sat inside a foreign-controlled building while the football sat outside a door guarded by Chinese soldiers who either didn't recognize the aide's credentials or didn't care. This time, the advance team made sure that won't happen again. The security agreement for 2026 almost certainly guarantees the football aide walks through every door the president walks through. A line item in the diplomatic security service fought for months ago. But the fact that it required a negotiation at all, that the briefcase connecting the president to America's nuclear weapons needed written Chinese permission to follow him through a door, that tells you where you are. Trump walks back through that same entrance, and somewhere behind him, close enough to never lose sight of the president, a military officer carrying a briefcase that this time everyone on both sides has agreed gets through the door. That briefcase, the one that finally made it through the door, connects the president to something most people can't imagine. If you want to know what happens when it gets open, then watch this. Bye for now.